All right, everyone. We now go to a very special guest. This is a guy that, always a friend of the program, but we've never really had on any of our house programming. Mike Randle, Chief Content Officer at FTN, recently entered from the education space as well. Full steam ahead for Mike Randle and FTN. So, Mike, welcome to the show. I feel like this was long overdue. How you doing, man?
Sir, it was long overdue. It is a pleasure. I love all the work that you're doing and you guys are doing here on the podcast. It's fantastic. It's a pleasure to be here to chat with you. We can cover so much. The topics are endless. Let's get started. I'm fired up.
I want to start with what's behind you. Can you give us a rundown of your spread back there? They're jerseys, but they're out of camera shot. So we need to know what this collateral is and the story behind them.
Yes, the first jersey I got, I believe in buying jerseys to your personality. Okay. I am not a Ravens fan, but Steve Smith, the great Steve Smith from the Ravens and the Panthers, is one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen. He caught a touchdown in the Meadowlands here in New Jersey with a broken arm. He's an ultra competitor. Love the guy. Future Hall of Famer. We have the 89 Steve Smith jersey from the Ravens. And then we have, of course, the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life, and that's Bo Jackson. And in addition, yes, Bo Jackson. And behind me, my wife got this for me. It is really the greatest basketball shot I've ever seen because of everything that was on the line. Ray Allen with the Heat against the Spurs, because he catches it, he steps backwards without looking down, bangs a three to take game 6 for the Heat to overtime. They win game 7. That gets LeBron a ring. That gets all the other players on the Heat a ring. And it prevents Duncan from getting 6 championships, which he would have gotten if he got that one. So a lot on that shot there. And it was just, in the moment, was incredible.
It's incredible. The call from Mike Breen was epic too. He goes, Ray Allen, step back for 3, bang! It's unbelievable. A lot of Spurs fans hate that clip, by the way. So if you see a Spurs fan that's giving a crap, just share that with them. That'll end their day.
So true, man. It was great. Just because that, Jake, is hours, thousands of hours of practice. That's the only way he could have shot that. It had to be done in a second.
Right. One of the best of all time. 3-point shooters for sure. Proud of you, the pride of UConn as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ray Allen's he's one that we grew up with and was unbelievable. So we're going to hit you with the hard hitting first question that we do to everybody. And that's, who is Mike Randle?
Mike Randle is a guy who has just been blessed to join FTN. I was doing content for them in September, and I joined with them. And then January became the chief content officer here at FTN. It's been fantastic. We are growing so quickly. The fantasy site with Jeff Radcliffe. We have Aaron Schatz coming on board now with the Fantasy Football Almanac, which has been huge. The FTN Daily site with Two Gun, who's also one of our investors, who's won $4 million prizes, 3 million makers and $4 million prizes in daily. And of course, our bet site. So it's been amazing. It's been fantastic. I'm working from home. Life is good. I just got back from the Fantasy Football Expo at the Hall of Fame. I did not play against Des Bryant in the flag football competition. And that was a good move because I am not in the hospital. So yes, that's who I am. And it's been a wild journey, man.
So I want to know, and thank God you didn't play Des. That would have been a fun ending for you. Man, was he like, so what's the deal with that? Was this like civilians and Des Bryant, or was this just like ex-NFL players, or what? How did that all go down?
Des is the NFL representative to sort of bridge the NFL and the fantasy community. The expo is run by Bob Lung, who started this years ago. I mean, over a decade ago. And he brings everybody together from the fantasy space. So anyone you know was there, whether it was JJ Zacharyson, anyone from Fantasy Life. Matthew Berry was there last year, and Des joined. So there was a flag football contest between fantasy analysts and Des Bryant's team. Des Bryant's team won. He played quarterback, Jake. He's lefty. He connected on multiple touchdowns. No, he did not play wide receiver because that wouldn't be fair. But yeah, it's fantastic. It's a multi-day event. It's at the NFL Hall of Fame. They have drafts, the King's Classic, Queen's Classic. Our Lauren Carpenter was running the women in fantasy panel. It was just a great event. It's a couple days, and it's my first time going, and I loved it.
It's incredible. And I want to know, let's take us way back. Maybe it was when you were a kid, maybe it was another time, but what was that moment that you first fell in love with sports? Like what was it that lit the match for you that, you said, eventually I want to work in this industry, even, sort of side hustling it when you were in the education system to now doing it full time. What was it for you?
Jake, it was two things. And now I'm much older than you, so I'm going to shock you here. Two things. Number one, I was a very young child, and it was 1986, and the Mets were playing the Red Sox. And they didn't have VCRs then, Jake. So my dad.
Is this where I'm supposed to say, what's that?
Exactly. That's exactly right. My dad had a video camera pointed at the television because I was so young. He's like, you got to go to bed. When you wake up, I'll play it for you. Game 6, 86. Woke up the next morning, Mookie Wilson, Bill Buckner, the whole thing. Saw it the next morning. Loved it. Second one, college basketball, 85. Had to go to bed again. Villanova, Georgetown. I hated Georgetown. Loved Syracuse. They were so good. And Villanova upset them with the perfect game. And I woke up in the morning, Jake, and outside my room as a kid, my dad had hung toilet paper from the ceiling with V's in it to let me know who won. And then I went downstairs and watched it. But those were the two things that, and I said, look, if I have a chance to get involved in sports, I would. The hilarious story is I was teaching and coaching, and a college friend of mine had a chance. He calls me up. He says, Mike, Elite Eight, Atlanta, come on down. This was 2004. And he was a big spender, had Duke basketball, the whole thing. So I flew down. Young guy, you fly down. I get down there, and he's like, I want you to meet some people. And I met these lovely girls and their husbands, and everybody was hanging out. And he said, tell me about Coach K. Tell me about how much you love Coach K, because I was a basketball coach. And I said, oh, Coach K's the man. I start going on, a couple drinks in me, food, the whole thing. They look at me and they go, we think he's pretty good too. And it kind of clicked, Jake, that, boy, they kind of look like him, huh? Anyway, long story short, we hung out with the Krzyzewski family the entire time. It was the Elite Eight in Atlanta against Xavier back in 2004. They won that. They ended up going in the Final Four. And I got a call from Mike Schrag, who now is somewhere. I think he's an athletic director somewhere, or Schrag or Schraggy, called me and asked me to come down and work the Duke basketball camp in 2004. The problem is, Jake, that they're out of school so early. I would have to quit my job and come down the first week in May. And I could not do that to the kids. So that was my other experience, the sliding doors moment. Did I miss my chance to coach? Because, you never know. But in the end, I found my way here. I'm still in sports now, so I'm fired up.
There you go. Does that ever haunt you that, you could have been coaching for Coach K?
I think about it, but Jake, it just was unrealistic. You're a teacher, you have AP classes, you have kids going to college, and I'm just going to walk into the principal at the first week in May and say, I'm out of here.
Maybe coach with Coach K.
And my friends bust me because they go, well, you could have got, you were a med teacher, could have got a job anywhere. Yeah, I get it, guys, but there is a sense of so I said, could you wait until June? And they said, no, we need you now. So I would have literally, Jake, in my 20s, had to throw away my entire career on a hope that working the basketball camp would lead to a restricted earnings job, right? It just seemed a little nuts. It seemed a little nuts at the time.
It's true. But you ended up doing just fine. So, wind us back a little bit more. Go to BC, you get 2 degrees in math, you're studying stats, you're sort of, this becomes your world, 2 degree math. And, there's the element of education, of course. You're studying regression models, statistical analysis. Why all this stuff? Were you just predisposed to math, or did you find an interest in the statistical sort of analysis side of things, or what was it for you there?
I loved math. I was always in the honors classes, Jake, but I had to work to get the B+, A-. Like the kid who slept in the back corner and got the A+, that was not me. But I loved math and I loved numbers. And we used to play fantasy baseball, with all your stats and your whip and your VORP. Great stuff. So I loved it. And I had a very influential teacher in my life. My dad was a teacher, and also this, my Mr. Cullen, who was my high school AP teacher, just really affected me. And so I went to school and wanted to be a broadcaster or go into business, try a couple things. And then you say, who are the people that have lives that you want to model? And it was these 2 people. So I said, I can coach. I can still do that and be involved. I ran at BC. I was track captain for 3 years, which is why my knees and back are shot. But like, I said, I want to model those people. And that's where it came from. I loved math. I love stats. I love the numbers. I love probability. I love calculating odds. And yeah, I love being a math teacher and working in education. But when I retired, I now got a chance to pursue some of my own interests, and it couldn't have come at a better time.
So, and then the last couple of years for you in this industry have been pretty interesting for you. So, just a little overview on what you've been up to. You've contributed at Action Network. You've had your Screen the Screener podcast for a while, or you've contributed a host of different places. So, in your eyes, what have the last few years looked like for you specific to sports?
Yeah. So I anyone who's interested in getting involved in sports, the answer is just say yes. I saw opportunities to write. I didn't care if I was getting paid. I needed a place to get my work out there. I would say about 4 years ago is when the audio and video sort of took off. So in 2016, I just started doing writing, and the big break came to me. A guy named Colin Kelly, he's on Twitter at Overtime Ireland, really changed my path because he put something out on RotoViz, which was a site I subscribed to, saying, does anyone want to learn how to edit and produce podcasts? I need to do some. And I said, why not? I didn't care about getting paid. Like, I just want to learn. Anyway, taught me Audacity, taught me how to edit. And we were doing the NFL team preview series where we would interview beat reporters. So honestly, Jake, it was interesting as hell, And so he taught me everything, and then it went from there. So then I called my buddy Gus Kearns at ckearns12 on Twitter. And I said, let's do a basketball podcast because now I know how to do it. So he came over to my house and we had our Yeti microphone, and both of us talked into the same Yeti microphone at a circular table. And then here we are. So the answer is just do what you like. If you like to write or you want to do a podcast, it doesn't matter. People will find you and it will grow. And I started interviewing people, and hey, people didn't write back for a while. Action Network rejected me the first time I applied. Then they took me the second time. So like, you just have to keep throwing darts at the wall.
Yeah. And then before we get into fantasy too, tell everyone about your newer gig, your current gig. So you get to FTN. We were talking off air about how you got there, which is a crazy story. How did you get to a place like FTN, and what are you doing day to day now?
Yeah, I was just writing for everyone, whether it was fantasy pros, betting pros, Action Network, every Big Ten powerhouse, anywhere I could write, Bleacher Report, I would write. And Kevin Adams, the CEO, God bless him, slid in my DMs. And I knew about FTN, and I knew they were blowing it up, and I knew they had started. And he said, hey, Mike, do you want to have a conversation? And originally he wanted to talk to me just to do exclusive content for FTN. And I always knew that they were coming on strong and they made a splash. And Jeff was there. I knew that. And I'm like, oh, sure, I'll talk. And then he knew my background. He knew I was a superintendent. I used to work in education, or I was working in education. And he said, well, we have a spot for a chief content officer, to be honest. And it worked out. So Kevin and the group, and Stefano Vaccarino, who's the CEO, CFO, COO, Jeff, the whole crew has been fantastic. The site is growing. We're doing great numbers in sales, and it's just been great. But that's it. It's a guy I never talked to. You post on Twitter, you interview people, and they listen. And so you never know. Like I said to you off air, good things happen, to good people if you work hard. And that's exactly what happened. He sent me a DM. I was watching was it was August. So I was probably watching some replay of Gonzaga St. Mary's, right? On that is what I was doing. And he contacted me, and now here I am.
It's incredible. So with football around the corner, you're on to talk some fantasy, right? We've got an audience that's clamoring to get back into this sort of thing. And what better person to do that with? I mean, can you just share about how you personally got into fantasy football? I mean, was it writing? Was it through another outlet? Have you played forever? How did you get into this, and what inspired you to sort of be an expert in this field?
I had played it for a while, and my first article was for a great site that's still around, Last Word on Pro Football. And you had to apply. They took it. My first article, Jake, was why Ezekiel Elliott is a terrible pick for the Cowboys. Called it Caveat Emptor, right? That's real original. Caveat Emptor, beware of Zeke Elliott. Anyway, he was terrible article, totally wrong. He was great that year. I think he was the RB2. It was awful. But that's what it was, is I just continued to write, and you watch people who are better writers, and you watch your JJ Zacharyasons and Jeff Radcliffe and Matt Kelly over Player Profile, all those people, and then you learn. and they give you a style, right? And you get better. And that's what it is. And then I ended up finishing first 2 years ago in the Fantasy Pros contest for RB rankings, pre-draft RB rankings, which was great because my cousin used to say your RB rankings are terrible. So I always flashed the badge, Jake, right in his face whenever. But yeah, it was great, and the rankings have gone well. And so now here we are, and I'm diving in every couple days and updating them. And my life is, am I ranking Jahan Dotson or Terry McLaurin higher? That is my life, Jake, is what I do.
It's riveting stuff. Well, I mean, it is. It's more riveting than like most people's 9 to 5 because you go and you can actually, I mean, the stuff you put out makes a difference, right? Yeah. It's the difference between a guy's winning season and potentially, having to do a lemonade stand in the front yard while, the rest of your friends drink or something like that, right? So who knows? Maybe, that work does inspire a little bit. I want to talk about prep, right? Because the content you're putting out there is obviously meant for consumers that are probably going to research and prepare for their drafts, right? So, I mean, for you, what goes into that, right? What resources are you using? Or is there content that others put out that you're sort of using as inspiration, or what's that research even look like for you?
It's projections based. So what you do, and I learned this years ago from, again, the guys at RotoViz, who were just wonderful people. Sean Siegel is there. He was the original Zero RB guy. Dave Cabin, Curtis Patrick, all these great guys there. What you do is you project your players. Now, how do you do that? Well, Jake, let's just take a random football. What's your favorite NFL team? Pick a team.
Oh, I'm a big Pats guy. You see my blue line thing above here? It's cut off.
Oh, it's cut off. That's what I got. Okay, yeah.
I got Gronk, Belichick, Brady, and who's the last one? It's Edelman in there.
Right. Perfect. So you're going to take the Patriots and you're going to look back on the last 5 years and see how many pass attempts and running attempts they've had. Then you're going to have to assign some sort of completion percentage to Mac Jones and try to figure that out because, of course, Brady years are in there.
It's a pretty low one, too.
Yeah. Then you're going to look at Ramondre. So that's how you do it. And you calculate that for each team and see where they are. So what you'll see is a lot of discrepancies. Like you can sit there and think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be a top 3 running back in fantasy. But then when you actually conceptualize and put a quantity number and quantify what he'd have to do to get that, you say there's no way he's making that. He could be top 10, but he's not going to be. That's what you do is I usually look back last 5 years, last 3 years, whatever it is. And you just project. And that's how you do projection models. You have to assign a number of plays. You have to assign, look at strength of schedule. We have a strength of schedule model, FTN, that we use. And you just see how you think the season's going to go. There is some nuance to it, but you're going to base it off of that. And if you line up all these top 20 running backs and you project where you think their rushing yards and their receiving yards are going to be, you start saying, I don't think Stevens, maybe he can, or maybe he can't, or why is Devontae Parker going in the last round when I know he could probably end up with 60, 70 receptions? That's the sort of stuff that you do that go into the rankings.
And that's another interesting piece of it too, because obviously this seems like a starting point, right? You look at certain guys let's say you get some sort of anomaly that comes out and it's like, well, this guy's not gonna, do what he did. He's old. He just had surgery, his knees bum or whatever. I mean, like, is there some sort of sliding scale that you're using to determine like, all right, this guy's 30 now. Like he's not going to be able to compete how he was. Like we're going to slide everything down by 15 or 20%. Like when do you factor that into a guy's performance?
It's at the end. After you do the projections, it's at the end. You look at them. And I still believe that when you project fantasy, some people just go by a model. They just go straight by a model. That's it. I combine them. Jake, you can sit there and know all the math in a poker tournament. And there is no substitute for me sitting across from you, having watched you and your mannerisms for 5 hours and me knowing you just don't have it. So I think there's nuance to both. You have to make mathematical based decisions. You just can't say, I like this guy, I like that guy. It doesn't work. But then when you get down to splitting hairs, whether I like Tony Pollard or whether I like Jonathan Taylor, I mean, can you have a more nebulous situation than Jonathan Taylor right now? I mean, he could end up in Miami, Jake, and everybody could be happy, or he could sit out. I mean, we used to think running backs don't sit out the whole year. We'll talk to Le'Veon Bell. So, I mean, people do sit. So that is the part you just don't know. You have to think about it. And then sometimes we hit it right. Like I got lucky 3 months ago. Sky Moore, I always thought was the top receiver in Kansas City. Always thought it was Sky Moore. I was drafting Sky Moore. People were going Kadarius Toney. Enough of Kadarius Toney. He was going after Marquez Valdez Scantling. I mean, so sometimes you hit it right.
Yeah, you hit on at least a few questions we had for this specific year too, because this is going to be an odd year for fantasy. I mean, you look at all these storylines. I want to start with the running backs too, because I don't think there's been, at least my lifetime that I've followed football, I don't think the running back position has been more in crisis than it is now. Right? Are they getting criminally underpaid, or is that the future of the position? That's that's not for me to decide. I don't think we're going to get that done, right? But I mean, how does it affect us from a fantasy perspective, right? Like, the general thought without any analysis is, okay, scores are going to go down, right? Like, maybe you should pass on running backs. But I mean, in your eyes, what do you see with the running back position there?
If you can find a 3-down running back that is actually going to play at least 15 games, then you have to take that running back right away.
But
The
I guess
problem
my point are, who are those people?
that is the question.
It's such a short list.
Yeah, and that's if you so for example, just going down the list, Christian McCaffrey is that guy for sure. People worry about the injuries, and this too. What I will say, Jake, is you have to make decisions on big picture strategies. Are you because most of the mathematical fantasy analysts say, I don't care about injuries. I can't predict them. Everyone's going to get them. I don't care. If Christian McCaffrey plays 15 or 17 games, he's going to be the running back one. So some people like that. Now, 2 of the last 3 years, that's been terrible. Last year, he was great. So you have to make that decision. When it comes to running backs, I tend to be more of a wide receiver early guy because the leagues I play in are at least half PPR, if not full PPR. So I worry about an Austin Eckler, who's had incredible 36 touchdowns in the last 2 years, but he's not coming back. And he tried to, negotiate his contract in the offseason for the Chargers, and they didn't bite. So could Joshua Kelly, Isaiah Spiller be worked in? Here comes the nuance. If you were the head coach of the Chargers, would you just feed Austin Eckler this year? Or would you say, guys, he's probably not coming back next year, and maybe try to give away some of his carries? So that could knock him down a little bit. Nick Chubb looks fantastic. Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson certainly looks great. In the history, as I mentioned, my Ezekiel Elliott article, of running backs doing well as rookies seems to be pretty strong. Derrick Henry, obviously fantastic. The question is the health, and he's older. Tony Pollard. I've been fading Tony Pollard, but they still haven't added a running back. And if they don't add a running back, he's going to be fantastic. So you go through each one of these players, and I create tiers, and I say, these are the top running backs for me. Pollard is in that tier now because they didn't add anybody.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I think, was it you that wrote that, like, right at the beginning of a recent article? Was it like, hey, Tony Pollard is, if you thought he was an RB8, I think people would have thought you were crazy if you wrote that 3 years ago. People don't think you're so crazy anymore because they were even saying it last year and the year before. People started to ask, hey, is Pollard better than Elliott, right? Is Pollard better than Elliott? A lot of people got laughed at for saying that, and now look what they've done. They've moved on from Elliott, and they're thrusting Pollard into the limelight here.
Tony Pollard in 4 years has increased his rushing attempts from 86 to 193. It's gone up 4 consecutive years. Wow. He's increased his rushing yards from 455 to 1,007. Last year, he broke 1,000 rushing yards. His receiving yards have gone up each of the last 4 years, 107 to 371. And his touchdowns, 3 4 years ago, 12 last year. He was the overall PPR RB8. I had my doubts. I did not think that they were going to feature him as the running back because, again, this is still a guy who at Memphis was primarily a wide receiver. But teams reveal what they're going to do with their actions, Jake, not by their words. They did not sign Ezekiel Elliott. Yes, Leonard Fournette is still out there. But at this point, I think they're rolling with Tony Pollard. And if you told me Tony Pollard is going to get 15 to 17 games, then Christian McCaffrey may be one, but Tony Pollard's going to be 2.
Wow, that's insane to think that just came out of your mouth, but it's true. It's absolutely true because that guy is, he could be poised to have a pretty good year. What's the running back depth even look like now? I'm looking at, they've got like Deuce Vaughn, Rico Dowdle, like none of these guys are really going to take his snaps away for the most part.
Yeah, they are debating between. Deuce Vaughn has been fantastic in the preseason, but he's still a rookie and he's still very slight in terms of his frames, like a mini Darren Sproles. Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis are battling. It's one of the key storylines coming into this week in the preseason is who's going to be the backup. But there's my point, Jake. As much as Tony Pollard doesn't feel like a Saquon Barkley and doesn't feel like an RB1, does Malik Davis or Rico Dowdle pose a major threat? So, again, he's slight of frame, but whenever he's been the RB without Zeke Elliott, he's been the overall RB1 2 of those 3 times. So for the week. So I get it. And you got to have a fluid Bayesian process. Like I didn't like Tony Pollard 3 months ago, and I thought they were adding somebody. And you know what? They're not. At least not right now. Now, if Lenny Fournette signs there on August 30th, okay, we'll see what happens.
Now we're cooking with a little fire here.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. So where's that cutoff for you? Is it like at maybe the Taylor level? It could be number 8, in the running back scheme. Is it like maybe farther down to someone like Najee Harris or Joe Mixon? Like where is that line for you from a running back perspective?
I tend to go wide receiver early, so I am not getting much of the Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson type of guys. I'm worried about Mixon to a certain extent. Najee Harris is dropping like 32.2 feet per second squared, because they think Jalen Warren is going to be this fantastic guy. And he had the 62-yard run last week in the preseason. That's not going to happen. Najee Harris is at worst a 65-35 running back, and he's going to get double-digit touchdowns. Why? Because Mike Tomlin always feeds his lead guy, and he is the short goal line back over the diminutive Jalen Warren. So what I will tell you is that with running backs, I do have some exposure to McCaffrey. I get that. But after that, I don't usually take a running back. I like Nick Chubb, but I don't take the Barkleys, Bijans, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard. I then look at Najee, if I can get 3 wide receivers in a row, and then pick up Najee. And then also, again, this Travis Etienne, who's getting pushed by Tank Bigsby, the Aaron Jones with A.J. Dillon, Jahmyr Gibbs with David Montgomery, no part of that. I then jump all the way down to the current, he's usually around RB 26 or 27, James Cook of Buffalo, who I absolutely love because, Jake, I can get him really cheap, and I think he's going to be a top 12 running back.
Interesting. You think he emerges out of the Buffalo crowd then?
Yes, I do. Damian Harris is fine, but he's already hurt, and he's a plotter. Cook can catch passes, Latavius. So, I mean, if you love the pass catching back, it's Cook on a great offense. And Cook is the lead RB1. Could they sub Harris in and out? Absolutely. But I'll take James Cook in round 6 anytime, especially in a half point or a full point PPR, because I think he's getting 50 or 60 receptions.
That's a good point. It hurts my Patriots' heart to say that they've got a good running back room, and they have for the past few years too. But it looks a little bit different this year because now they've got Harris. Did they move on from Singletary, or is he not playing, or where?
He's in Houston. Yeah, he went down in Houston, and that's the thing. I think last year Devin Singletary was like 800 yards. So to me, if Cook just gives what Singletary did last year, he's going to pay off that ADP.
Yeah. Wow. That's something I really hadn't thought of. So, it sounds like, go for if you're in a position to get, the top 3-4 guys, then by all means go for it. But maybe take a pass on the bulk of that next sort of wave of running backs, if you will. Try to get try to stack your wide receivers up a little bit, and then try to buy it cheaper value for later on.
100%. That's what I do. And it may not, and again, it's not about me telling you what to do, Jake. It's about me telling you the key questions that you have to answer before your fantasy draft, and then make your own decision. I don't think anyone should just blindly tell me. I wouldn't tell anybody blindly, but you take that and you say, is this what I want? To Travis Kelce or not to Travis Kelce? If Travis Kelce has the same year he had last year, he is the number 1 overall pick in every single draft period, because he gives you such a positional advantage at tight end. However, if he doesn't, and he comes back down to earth just a little bit, and the Dallas Goederts and the Kyle Pitts and the Mark Andrews and those sort of guys, George Kittle, get closer, then he's a terrible first-round pick.
Yeah, wow. It's interesting stuff. I think personally the other big storyline this year is with the quarterbacks, right? We've seen a lot of movement. And whether that's young guys getting a new opportunity like a Sam Howell in Washington, whether that's old guys getting a new opportunity like Aaron Rodgers, a lot of shifting. And who knows, the quarterback battle in Tampa, how that fares up with Baker and with everybody else there. So, any guys you look at and say, yes, he's in a new market, I really like him, here's the reason why. Who stands out?
In a new market, let's see. If I look down the list, and I have a couple things I'll tell you about quarterback as well. What you want is you certainly want a rushing quarterback. I know Deshaun Watson's not in a new situation, but I think Deshaun Watson could have a much better year than he's being drafted, usually around quarterback 10. But this is a guy, Jake, who was QB5, QB2, QB5 before everything went off the tracks in his personal life. Anthony Richardson, I am not a big fan of. People love Anthony Richardson because he can run. To pay off his ADP, he'd have to be like almost Justin Fields or Cam Newton-like in his first year, and I just think they have limited weapons. Aaron Rodgers is solid, but you want a Russian quarterback at this point. If you wanted a late-round quarterback, I have two. I am still on the Russell Wilson train because he was so bad last year. He was QB 18. He's being drafted. He was QB 16. He's being drafted as QB 18, Jake. So, again, I don't hate players. I hate ADPs. And the other one is I'm starting to buy into the Kenny Pickett hype. I like the Steelers. We like Mike Tomlin. It looks pretty good. He's got a lot of weapons. Kenny Pickett, quarterback 22. You can get him late. Not a bad choice either. But I will tell you this. For the last 15 years, if you look at the top 3 quarterbacks in ADP, 1, 2, 3, before the season, one of them busted in 14 of the 15 seasons. Bust by injury, bust by QB 13. Only one time, Jake, in the last 15 years did the top 3 quarterbacks by ADP all finish as a QB1. I am not saying that you should spend a lot of time tonight deciding whether that's going to be Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. What I'm telling you is one of them is going to have a bad year. And
wow.
It's just the way it is. They're not going to finish like that. So if that's the case, if you want to take one of them, that's fine. I usually either grab one of them early or I wait till much later. I don't want to hang around in the middle, Joe Burrow. I don't want that because I think there's not a lot of value.
Wow. So, man, that's crazy because odds are, I think if you've pulled America right now, they would say it's Josh Allen that has that year. But there's a lot of people that would say, no, this is going to be a breakout year. Like he's finally going to get it together.
Mm-hmm.
They said that last year and the year before too. But, the jury is pretty much in on Jalen Hurts, right? You saw what he did last year. The jury's never going to be out on Mahomes.
Yep.
So I wonder if he ends up being that guy.
Yeah, and you can look at it too because there always also are issues in terms of, the team that loses the Super Bowl always doesn't have a great year the next year. And at some point, Patrick Mahomes may have like a QB9 year. I know that's blasphemous, Jake, to say, but if he has the QB8, is that like a disaster? No, but he's not going to pay off his value.
Yeah. No, it's a fair point. What are your thoughts on what's shaping out in San Francisco right now? Is it obviously? I don't think you want to touch it from I'm going to draft this guy, and not even a late round perspective. Am I taking Brock Purdy with the last couple picks? Probably not. But any thoughts on how that emerges and maybe one of those guys emerging as a potential waiver wire ad late down the stretch?
Yeah, I think Brock Purdy's great. I think I'm huge on Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle is always a fantastic outlet and Deebo Samuel's there. I'm a Brock Purdy guy. He doesn't run. The reason he's going late is because anyone who runs, I used to say if Usain Bolt became a quarterback, he'd be drafted in the top 3 because people just say, oh, if he runs. I don't think it's that easy, at least not in your first season. How about that? But since Purdy doesn't run, he's getting pushed down. Jake, there's something to be said if you wait on quarterback because you have such a strong running back, wide receiver, tight end group. That 272-1 is not a terrible Sunday. And that's what I think Purdy gets more often than not.
Yeah, it's fair. And then thoughts on Tua. Should people be comfortable taking him?
He's bad sushi for me. I get very nervous taking Tua because of the concussions, because they still don't have a running back. I just don't have a lot of Tua. He was fantastic last year, but his arm strength isn't great. I don't think they can deal with a lot of injuries with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle because it's such a consolidated target share. I get it. I'm not high on Tua. I would rather wait for later with the Daniel Jones and the Russell Wilsons and the Kenny Pickett's than take him.
Yeah. I think I'm right with you. That's just enough motivation to hopefully cling on to the Pats season for me too. Hoping things go wrong. And it's sad because I really do like Tua as a person. I think he is a good quarterback. And I do feel bad for the guy because he's been through the ringer with all these injuries. But and then you're a noted guy that's high on all the Chiefs receivers, right? It's incredible because they just trot whoever out there. They said they'd be bad without Hill, and look what he's doing in Miami. They said they'd be bad without Juju, right? And Juju. They're in a position now to be just fine without him, right? Yep. You're a big Sky Moore guy. I'm a big Sky Moore guy. But is everyone else in this receiving core for the Chiefs somebody that you would trust?
Yeah, I again, Jake, it's the ADP. It's because I can pick up a bunch of Chiefs late. Now, listen, last year it wasn't fantastic. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster was okay, but I just think I don't think we can write Travis Kelce in every year to be that dominant. So you can get Sky Moore and Rashee Rice, Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney if you like him, Marquez Valdez, however you want to do it. You can get all those guys late if you want. And that's what it is. I figure one of them will hit. And when they hit, we're going to be all set.
Yeah. What makes Sky Moore such this high potential guy? Is it just his speed, or is it the way that he's? Is it the things they're asking him to do? Like, what's your take on Sky Moore?
Productive and really productive in college, super fast, played in big games last year. Mahomes is going to trust him through a touchdown pass to him. Yes, it was only 2 yards, but still, it was a touchdown pass. He has the experience. I think Andy Reid's offense is difficult to pick up. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling is what he is. He was the bomb guy with Aaron Rodgers that he catches one and drops two. Kadarius Toney is always injury prone and had a 1 year of college production in Florida. I don't like players with that profile, Mitch Trubisky. So so it's really looking around. Rashee Rice. I talked to Jesse Newell, who used to cover the Kansas Jayhawks, the Kansas City Star. Now he covers the Kansas City Chiefs. He says, Mike, you got to cool the Jets with Rashee Rice. He's still a second-round pick in his rookie year. He goes, so what Sky Moore did last year. So if you look at all those players, you start checking it off, who's catching the passes? I think it's Sky Moore.
Yeah. He's just so quick, and he's I think he made a name for himself this past year. At least he wasn't putting up these insane numbers, but he didn't really have to with what they were doing. It just worked so well, and they sort of said, hey, you contribute where you can.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's interesting stuff. I've got to ask about the Patriots because I have to, and then I'll ask on the Giants on behalf of Will. The Pats, Mac Jones has had an interesting couple of years. I mean, do you, from an analytical perspective, do you expect his numbers to go up a bit now with the new weapons, with the new scheme? What do you think?
I do. I think last year they had a terrible offensive coordinator situation. I think this year it will be much better with Bill O'Brien. I believe in Mac Jones's accuracy. I think he's learned a lot. I still believe in Belichick. He's the best football coach I've ever seen. I think they should change the Lombardi name trophy and call it the Belichick Trophy. And I'm not even a Patriot fan.
That's the correct answer.
But I like the weapons. I believe in the Patriots. They're always great. They went into Buffalo and didn't throw the ball more than twice and beat the Bills. Jake, that's all you got to tell me. I like Mac Jones. I don't think Bailey Zappi is a legitimate starter in the NFL. Mac Jones is over-under in his passing touchdowns, I believe was 19.5 or 18.5. I slammed the over right away. I do believe in him. I get it. And everyone always wants to get rid of the quarterback. And Jake went through the same thing down here with Daniel Jones. The problem is, who else are you getting? You cannot get rid of the quarterback until you have a better option. Who's the better option? You're not going to get one of the top.
It's not Zappi. It's right, just not Zappi.
Right. So let's go with Mac Jones. If he doesn't play well, I mean, could we go to Malik Cunningham? I don't think so. But at least he splashed in the preseason. But I'm fine. My feeling I have about Mac Jones is the feeling I have with Daniel Jones. They are who they are, but you can win with them at quarterback. Everyone is not Patrick Mahomes. And if you continue to chase that, it's a bad move. If you have a better option, if you wanted to bring in Derek Carr, I'd be fine with that. I'm not even a big Derek Carr guy. But if you don't have a better option, then you're rolling with Mac Jones. And yes, I think he's going to have a good year. I do.
Yeah, and I think Derek Carr, correct me if I'm wrong, that's like a regression from years. If you're asking me, would I rather have Mac Jones or Derek Carr on the New England Patriots? It's Mac Jones 10 times out of 10 because you want a guy that it's like I'm excited about. I'm excited for him, right? He's had kind of the short end of the stick for the past couple of years. He's had these guys that have objectively sucked around him, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the weapons, whether it's the injuries, whatever. And now he's got a new guy that he's worked with before in Bill O'Brien. He's got a group of receivers that has improved. I'm not saying they're the Chiefs level, but they've improved, right? You go out and add Juju, Mike Gesicki. Those are guys that can change your offense like right now. So it's interesting stuff. And then you've got Zeke Elliott too, which is
fun. And I think Ramondre's fine. His ADP is dropping. Let's take it easy. I like Zeke, but let's just take it easy with this. But I don't like I don't like Carr. I don't like him at all. And I think Mac Jones to me is fine. I get it, guys. He's not going to be 420 yards, Mac Jones. It's fine, but
He
I
doesn't
don't
need
think
to be.
he doesn't need to be, and he's better than whatever option you can come up with. He's better than Jacoby Brissett or somebody like that who will be out.
God. Is he better than Brian Hoyer? Is what most
Of
Patriots
course
fans
he
would
is.
counter
Yes,
with.
of course he is. Of course he is. Honestly, and this may be taboo. I don't know what your listeners will think. I think he's just as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think Garoppolo's great.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's about
think
the
you're
same
right.
level. So you were ready to hand the reins to Jimmy Garoppolo. What's the difference? And the kid's
I
younger.
would make the claim that Mac Jones is better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
At this point, we'll have to see how he fares up in the playoffs down the road. Jimmy won some high caliber playoff games, so I mean they could have similar careers, but I think Mac Jones' ceiling might be a little bit higher at this rate.
Totally agree.
And I really hope they just get it together with him. And asking on behalf of Will as well, too, with the Giants, Daniel Jones is a guy that you've mentioned, he is what he is, right? Mm-hmm. You get some value for him later on in a draft, potentially. Maybe he's a streamer quarterback or, hey, maybe QB1 gets hurt. You plug him in for the rest of the year. How do you see the Giants offense shaping up? And is that a guy that's sort of worth you looking at towards the end of the draft?
Well, they sure as heck looked impressive on their first drive. Daniel Jones, I think, looks very good. Brian Dable is as good as Kyle Shanahan is with getting the most out of his players. Darren Waller looks to be the center part of the offense. I think Darius Slayton is one of the best late round values because he's still going to be a leading receiver there. I like this team. I like them. I'm not sure about their win total over under, but they're going to be competitive in every game. And Daniel Jones again, he's fine. This is a guy 2 years ago who's going to be booed out of the stadium. Now all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, look at Daniel, 8-9, touchdown the first drive. Yes, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think the Giants are they're well-oiled machine right now, and Dable totally changed them. So it's cool to see that. As we talk about how certain draft approaches change too, right? I'm in a dynasty league. This is year 3. I won year 1. That's my humble brag of the day. So dynasty and PPR and standard and half point PPR, double point, but whatever people are doing, right? I mean, does your approach change? There's got to be some slight differences. Obviously in dynasty, you're looking more towards that younger generation. You're taking more bets on rookies and younger guys, and maybe some unproven guys. But in general, if you're going into a PPR or standard or fantasy draft, like how much does your strategy really change?
The PPR makes a big difference. It's going to really bump up the wide receivers, and it's going to bump up your high volume players. It's going to bring your slot receivers like a Sky Moore, somebody like that into play. And it's going to make me even fade running backs early even more. A guy like Austin Eckler becomes extremely valuable then. But your touchdown guys just aren't going to be there. And I'm going to wait later. I'm going to try to do something that I've done in PPR and half PPR for years, which is team backfield drafting. Give me Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine because I can get them both late. And if they both play well, that's fine. I can figure it out as the year goes on. Give me both, unless they trade for, they trade for Jonathan Taylor. Give me Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson down in Miami. Yeah. Why, Jake? Because I can get them late. So in those situations when I can get running backs who catch passes late, I'm going to wait even longer on running backs. In your standard traditional leagues, you still want those guys who score touchdowns.
What do you think? And also on the waiver wire too, when's too early to start hunting for guys and maybe start plugging them into guys that might be underperforming?
Yeah, you have to know which guys to wait on and which guys to let go. Keenan Allen was a guy who last year was really injured and banged up the whole year, but you needed to hold on to him because when he came back, he was gold. So it really is dependent. I mean, for years, people loved Josh Gordon, and the Josh Gordon truthers would just draft him and keep him the entire year. But you have to know it's situational based. Sometimes when you see something, you can get rewarded because you have to act quickly. But when it comes with veterans, I'll give them a little more time because, as Bill Parcells used to say, you always go back to what's on the back of the card. And on the back of the card is your production for years. So rookies and those guys that react a little quicker, veterans that may hold on a little bit. But there is a point. I mean, you would have had to hold Keenan Allen for 11 weeks. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, it is. And that was a tough decision for a lot of people. It's like, oh my God, is Keenan Allen do we have to forget about him? Is no one ever going to draft him again?
Yep,
or
sure.
is he going to rebound? And then of course, he finally gets it together. I mean, in your eyes, what's the most common mistake that maybe people are going to walk into these drafts and, they're going to do blank. They're going to screw up in this area. What do you think it'll be?
You need a plan. You have to come to grips. When you do your drafts, Jake, you have to tell me, are you taking a quarterback early or not? You need to understand that. Are you taking Travis Kelce or not? Are you going to go ahead? You need to have some sort of plan. You're going to react to what goes on in the draft. But the idea you just go in there is crazy. You have to have an idea of ADPs. I like doing mock drafts and know where you can get players. So I'm saying right now, if anybody's in a league with me, I'm going to wait on running back and I'm going to take James Cook of Buffalo. I'm going to try to team backfield draft Denver, and I'm going to try to team backfield draft Miami. My argument is one of those pairings will click. I think Cook's going to be a home run, and I will stockpile wide receiver after wide receiver early. That is my plan. You need to have a plan like that going into what you're going to do. If you do that, you'll be successful. You don't have to have everything, but you need to have your guys, whoever that may be.
And so I'm going to parlay that into the next question here. And I didn't say that because you work with a sports wagering network as well, too. But, I would say this is a two-pronged advice here. What advice would you give to someone that's new to fantasy and wants to excel at it? And also, where I feel like 90% of the people are going to be are, holy shit, I've been playing fantasy for 20 years. I can't ever win. I do it all wrong. Maybe I'll make the playoffs. Maybe I made the championship once, but I haven't really won. What do you say to those people?
I'll take the last one first. If you haven't won, try a different strategy. Maybe the move is to take one of these elite quarterbacks and hope you hit the 2 or the 3 that are going to do well. You have to do mock drafts. You have to try to do them because you have to see where players are going. Study ADPs. Look for discrepancies. Of course, I'm going to say use FTN. We have great rankings and we have disparities in articles. So I think reading articles, watching a quick summary on a video is all helpful and stuff that you should look forward to doing. That's what I enjoy doing, because when I get to my draft with my friends, which is the one we really want to win, that I want to know who's the value. I take no time on my picks because I've done so many mocks, simulations, etc.
Yeah. And then to that new person, is it just have a plan, or is it what else?
Have a plan. And if what hasn't worked in the past, then change it. Maybe you struggle on the waiver wire. You always make the wrong moves. Then you know what? Start your draft with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, or start your draft with a solid running back and Nick Chubb, if you like running back, and Jalen Hurts. Get yourself those solid players so that you minimize the decisions you have to make. And if you're someone who always bombs and ends up never picking up the right person, why don't you take some solid wide receivers, because their range of outcomes tend to be higher, and look to stream quarterback or look to stream that. Try something different. And it will work. I
might switch it up a little bit. We'll see what happens here. So, finally, your stance on these team names too. There's a lot of controversy that, if you have a player in the name that's too corny, it's dumb, it's stupid, and other people are like, no, that's the only thing you can do. What does a Mike Randle fantasy team name look like?
Oh my God, what did I have? I'm looking it up right now. I forget. I just put my favorite one up there. It's something to do with Dak Prescott. I think it was. Hold on, I'm gonna find it. Yeah. Oh, I did Kyler Soze because my son's name is Kyler. And we had a Slack channel for team names. I got to find. There were so many good ones here. Oh, you put me on the spot. I hope I could find the channel. But there was a great one where we did fantasy team names. And we had our guy, Daniel Kelly, wrote an article as well on FTN Fantasy that was great. But there were some great ones. And people come up with them so quickly that you just
insane.
Yeah, you start laughing. Let me see if I can find it while you're talking. Yeah, we had a really good one here recently that I loved, and he did a special on it because it's almost like you feel like you have an advantage when you start. Here it is, best fantasy football team names. Here it is. I mean, it's really incredible. He went team by team. Name a team, Jake, and I'll give you a myriad.
Oh man, any team. Let's go the Vikings.
Sure, we got it here. He's got them all. Les Cousins, dangerous. Chandler and Ross, CJ Ham sandwich, always a McBridesmaids, Air Jordan Addison. Give me one more, and then I'll let you go.
Air Jordan Addison.
How about your Patriots? You want your Patriots here?
Yeah, let's do the Pats.
Bad Juju, Simon and Smith Schuster, Mac Jones. Who? Return of the Mac. Don't worry, be zappy. Kendrick Bourne identity.
Oh, I love that.
Kendrick Bourne identity. You make me Gesicki. Devontae's Inferno, and a boat on Ryland. I mean, just incredible.
Wow. Devontae's Inferno is interesting. Yeah. I'm going to give you one more. Let's do, oh man, you pick one. Any random team.
How about Seattle?
No, let's do Seattle. Yeah.
So many here, obviously. Sip a Chardonnay, fine bottle of Chardonnay. I'm sorry, Smith Jackson.
Oh
DK,
my God.
DKNY, Metcalf me in Vegas, Lock It Up, Human Geno Project, DJ does Dallas, and Barbie.
Human Geno Project?
Yes.
Oh my God.
DJ does Dallas and Barbie and Ken Walker. Yes.
DJ does Dallas is good. Wow, those are creative. Did this guy just come up with all of them? Or?
He had several that he had. He did some research and he also surveyed us here at FTN, which was nice.
Pour me some Chardonnay. Was that the first one? That's a fun one.
Yeah, sip a Chardonnay. Sip a Chardonnay and fine bottle of Chardonnay. You got it. Yep.
No, I like that. If I somehow end up with Zach Charbonnet, first I'll probably quit, but secondly I'll probably I'll go with that one. I hate the Seahawks. I can't root for Zach Charbonnet. That really sucks. But
so funny.
Awesome stuff, man. Thank
Excellent,
you so much for popping on here. I'm personally more comfortable if our listeners and in our House Enterprise Fantasy League too. Hopefully the 10 of us have been all listening to this to get some watch. Everybody's going to be after James Cook. I'm going to be like, damn it. You know what, where to continue the research, where can everybody find your work? How can they keep up with you? And if there's any sort of stuff that you want to promote from the FTN side, the floor is yours.
FTN Fantasy, FTNDaily.com, FTNBets.com. And we just have a tremendous sale going on right now. The Discord is hopping and you have so many options to come in and ask us questions. You can upgrade your subscription for FTN Fantasy Plus and Daily. And we also have a flash sale right now. $269.99 for a limited time only, and you get the full year of both the Optimizer and FTN Fantasy. And why that is great is because why would you not want to play fantasy DFS from a guy who's won the Millie Maker 4 times? I don't know why, Jake.
That's
beautiful.
True. Man, you're making this tempting for me now too. I want to win some coin.
Sure.
Let's not wait so long next time. Let's do some college basketball stuff together. We'll have you back on. Hopefully you get up to this area when Providence plays Georgetown, because that's something now you and I have a common bond over.
My gosh, that's going to be a great game.
This is a very anti-Georgetown podcast.
I'm sure. Yes. Very good.
Will share the same hatred for the Georgetown Hoyas that we do. So, love Ed Cooley, great guy. Hope he goes 0-20.
I totally understand. Not surprised.
We appreciate you a bunch, Mike. Thanks so much. And we will certainly not wait as long for the next time.
You got it, sir. No problem at all. Thanks.